Are you ready for a trip straight into the heart of the 90s, when the most brutal and beautiful muscle cars defined an era that will never return? Today, you're going to discover the 10 most powerful, fastest, and legendary classic cars that turned every road into a stage for pure adrenaline. If you love iconic cars, incredible stories, and that feeling of freedom only a V8 can give you, this video is for you. Before we fire up the engines, give us a like and subscribe to the channel. It's totally free and helps us keep creating content that fuels your passion for the most amazing classics of all time. Now get ready, because this is just getting started. 1996 Chevrolet Camaro SS. Do you know what happens when you mix the purest roar of asphalt with a silhouette that looks sculpted for speed? Let me introduce you to the Chevrolet Camaro, a muscle car that didn't just accelerate, it also stole glances and hearts as easily as it burned rubber. Just imagine for a moment. The 90s, pulsing to the rhythm of grunge, theaters packed with Independence Day, and you driving this Camaro under an orange sunset, feeling every press of the throttle shoot endorphins straight into your bloodstream. Under that hood that looks like a declaration of war sits an LT1 5.7-liter V8 engine, the same one that powered the Corvette of the era, delivering a fierce 305 horsepower that felt wild, almost untamable. The 6-speed manual transmission completed the perfect recipe for those who loved having absolute control. And if you're wondering how fast this American demon could take you, the answer is as clear as a summer sky. 155 miles per hour top speed, provided your courage matched that kind of power. But the Camaro SS wasn't just muscle without brains. Thanks to the special package developed by SLP Engineering, each unit received upgraded air intake, a free-flowing exhaust that sounded like thunder, and revised suspension to tame all that fury. Visually, the Camaro was a spectacle. Its low, wide body looked ready to devour the pavement, with smooth yet aggressive lines starting from the sharp front end and stretching back to the rear spoiler, crowning its silhouette. The rectangular headlights and that split grille were like a defiant sneer, while the 17-inch alloy wheels and the SS badge announced its wild personality. Even standing still, it looked like it was about to launch into a sprint that would leave everything behind. In total, about 2,260 units were produced in 1996, making it a piece many collectors now hunt for with devotion. In fact, if you wanted to have a pristine example in your garage, you'd have to shell out around $35,000, and believe me, every penny is worth it for the experience of driving a true emblem of freedom. One detail many don't know is that this Camaro SS was one of the first to offer a functional hood scoop that fed air directly into the engine, increasing oxygen flow and throttle response. That little detail marked the difference between simply being fast and being absolutely unforgettable. 1996 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am WS6. They say some cars don't just take you somewhere, they transport you to another state of mind, another time when everything felt bolder and more exciting. The Firebird Trans Am is exactly that, a ticket straight back to the days when the roar of a V8 was the soundtrack of freedom. When you saw it appear in your rearview mirror with that imposing, almost arrogant presence, you felt a shiver run down your spine. It was the car kids dreamed of owning, and adults looked at with almost reverential respect. Under its long hood hid a fierce heart, a 5.7-liter LT1 V8 tuned to produce 305 horsepower that seemed to multiply every time you buried the throttle. Its torque exceeded 332 pound-feet, more than enough to launch this Trans Am to 149 miles per hour with hardly any effort, while the tack needle climbed like an unstoppable wave. The magic of the WS6 package wasn't just about raw power, it was how it turned every inch of pavement into a racetrack. The upgraded suspension, thicker sway bars, and sharper steering made this Pontiac feel as agile as it was brutal. About 2,600 units of the Trans Am WS6 were built in 1996, making it a coveted prize for collectors who know a legend when they see one. And its reputation wasn't just hype. The WS6 was responsible for restoring the Firebird status as a serious, fast, thrilling car. Today, its value can easily exceed $40,000 if you find a pristine example, because this isn't the kind of car people sell easily. Whoever owns one tends to keep it like a treasure. Perhaps one of its most special details was the iconic ram air hood, that twin air scoop that looked like two eyes glaring fiercely at anyone who dared to challenge it. This system wasn't just for show. It channeled cold air straight into the engine, improving throttle response and adding a deep growl that made the chest of anyone nearby vibrate. If you were ever lucky enough to hear it start up at dawn, you know it's a sound you never forget. And when it comes to looks, it's impossible not to be hypnotized by its silhouette. The Trans Am WS6 wore a muscular design, with wide fenders and a front end that looked like a warrior's mask. The pop-up headlights were a futuristic wink, and the massive 17-inch chrome wheels reinforced the feeling that this car was ready for any challenge. The rear end, crowned by a prominent spoiler, looked so provocative that many remember it as one of the most iconic images of the decade. 1994 Ford Mustang SVT Cobra. Did you know there are cars that don't just evolve over time, but completely reinvent their legacy? The Mustang SVT Cobra is one of those rare examples that managed to transform an icon into something even more exciting and respected. If you ever dreamed of a Mustang that combined classic toughness with modern engineering, this Cobra was the perfect answer. Imagine standing in a dealership in the mid-90s, breathing in the smell of fresh paint and flipping through shiny new brochures. Right in front of you, this Mustang looked different from any other. Its completely redesigned shape was more aerodynamic, more muscular, and had a character all its own. But what really mattered wasn't visible at a glance. It was under that hood, ready to roar with fury. The SVT Cobra housed the venerable 5.0-liter Windsor 5.8, specially tuned by the special vehicle team engineers working almost in secret like modern-day alchemists. This engine produced 240 horsepower and 290 pound-feet of torque, numbers that might seem modest next to the monster that came later, but in their day offered a perfect balance between usable power and reliability. With this engine, the Cobra could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 6.3 seconds and reach a top speed of 143 miles per hour, more than enough to make you smile every time you buried your foot in the throttle. Aesthetically, the Cobra had a more aggressive look than the standard GT models. Front bumpers with larger air intakes, a chrome snake badge replacing the traditional pony, unique 17-inch wheels, and a subtle rear spoiler that gave it a sporty air without crossing into excess. Production was limited compared to later models. Around 5,000 units were built in 1994, all of them with details that make them highly prized among collectors. Today, finding a 94 Cobra in original condition is a small victory, and its value can be around $25,000, depending on mileage and how well it's been cared for. Now tell me in the comments, if you could choose between this 94 Mustang SVT Cobra with its classic essence or one of the newer, more powerful models, which one would you pick and why? Your answer might inspire other fans to share their passion for these icons that will never go out of style. 1997 Chevrolet Corvette C5. Some cars are born with a very clear mission: to redefine everything you thought you knew about speed, design, and technology. The Corvette C5 is exactly that, a burst of freshness and audacity that arrived to prove the Corvette legend wasn't just alive, but stronger than ever. If you close your eyes for a moment and think about the 90s, you can probably picture the silhouette of this sports car slicing down the highway with a roar that shook the air and sent chills down your spine. To understand why this Corvette was so revolutionary, you only need to lift its long hood and meet the heart of the beast. The all-new LS1 5.7-liter V8, a completely redesigned engine that produced an impressive 345 horsepower and 347 pound-feet of torque. This aluminum block was lighter, more powerful, and more efficient than any of its predecessors. Thanks to it, the C5 could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.7 seconds and reach a top speed of 171 miles per hour, figures that rivaled European sports cars costing twice as much. But the Corvette C5 wasn't just fast in a straight line. Its hydro-formed aluminum and steel chassis, together with an aluminum double wishbone suspension, gave it remarkable composure in corners. For the first time, the Corvette felt as refined as it was, brutal, as precise as it was thrilling. It was a car you could drive daily and still take to the track to explore its limits without fear it would fall apart. In 1997, this Corvette marked the triumphant return of the model after a long development cycle and delays. It was so significant that General Motors sold over 9,700 units in its first year alone, and each one left the Bowling Green factory as a symbol of American pride. Today, a well-preserved example can cost between $25,000 and $40,000, depending on mileage and overall condition. One fun detail that few people remember is that the Corvette C5 was the first Corvette in over 40 years to feature a rear-mounted transaxle, a setup that improved weight distribution to a perfect 50-50. This solution, more typical of Ferrari or Porsche, completely transformed its handling and elevated the Corvette's reputation from muscle car to world-class serious sports car. Aesthetically, the C5 was a statement of intent. Its fluid, aerodynamic lines looked like they were carved by the wind, with a low profile that hugged the ground and a long nose that radiated contained power. The pop-up headlights, which disappeared with an almost theatrical motion, were a visual signature that nodded to previous generations. And if you ever saw one painted in torch red or millennium yellow, you surely understood why this Corvette made any speed lover's heart beat faster. 1991 to 1992, Pontiac Firehawk. There are cars that weren't born simply to be admired. They were born to intimidate, to awaken something wild inside you that you didn't even know existed. The Firehawk is exactly one of those rare chosen few. This very special Firebird was conceived by SLP Engineering as a limited series designed to transform a Trans Am into a Predator, capable of staring down any Corvette, and even some European sports cars. Imagine seeing it arrive in 1991. Its presence was so imposing, it felt like the entire street shrank when it passed by. Under its muscular hood slept a 5.7-liter L98 V8 engine, tuned with deep modifications including a ram air induction system and a high-flow exhaust that turned every burst of throttle into a thunderclap that rattled your chest. Official output was 350 horsepower. Though many owners swore it actually made more, this Firehawk could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.6 seconds, an absolutely crushing figure for the early 90s. The top speed hovered around 165 miles per hour, but the most exciting part was how it got there, with a ferocity that made you forget you were in a Pontiac. Production was incredibly limited. Only 25 units built in 1991 and another 25 in 1992, making it one of the rarest and most coveted creatures in the muscle car universe. If you wanted one of these today, you'd have to be prepared to pay over $80,000. And even then, you'd likely wait until a collector decided to part with it. Each Firehawk was numbered and certified by SLP, a detail that increases its historical value and makes owning one feel like membership in a secret society of true enthusiasts. A fascinating fact few people know is that the Firehawk was the forerunner of SLP's entire high-performance vehicle program. Thanks to the success of this project, SLP became the most respected name in tuning Camaros and Firebirds in the years that followed. This car didn't just mark a turning point for Pontiac, It opened a path that would change the American muscle car landscape for more than a decade. Visually, the Firehawk had that menacing look that instantly told you this was no ordinary Trans Am. Its hood with massive functional air intakes, the exclusive 17-inch wheels, and the lowered suspension gave it an aura of pure, contained aggression. 1992 Dodge Viper RT/10. If there was ever a car that broke every rule, born without compromises, without fear, and without filters, it was the Viper. This wasn't just any sports car. It was a wild animal designed with a single purpose, to make you feel like you were taming a dragon every time you turned the key. Seeing it for the first time in the 90s was like witnessing the rebirth of an American legend, a car that looked like it had escaped from a racetrack to conquer the streets. Under its endless hood lurked an engine that still commands respect today, an 8.0-liter VS10, derived directly from Dodge's truck engineering and refined by Lamborghini. This monstrous block produced 400 horsepower and an outrageous 465 pound-feet of torque, figures that turned every acceleration into a visceral experience. There was no traction control, no ABS, no electronic safety nets, just you, the Viper, and the asphalt. If you dared to bury the throttle, this beast could reach 165 miles per hour and sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.6 seconds, provided you were brave enough to keep your foot down. Every Viper looked like it had stepped straight out of a superhero comic. Its fiberglass body was low, wide, and unapologetic, with an endless hood and those side-exit exhaust pipes that spat heat like an enraged dragon. The interior was nearly Spartan, no standard air conditioning, no power windows, nothing to distract you from the essentials. Because Dodge understood that if you wanted luxury, you could buy a Mercedes. But if you wanted pure adrenaline, you had to choose a Viper. In 1992, only 285 units were produced, making it a highly coveted collector's piece for enthusiasts who dream of hearing its roar. Today, its value can exceed $90,000 depending on condition. But if you ask anyone who's ever owned one, they'll tell you the money doesn't matter. The experience of driving it is something numbers simply can't explain. A fun detail that few remember is that during development, engineers had to test prototypes on the track wearing motorcycle helmets. Because the heat from the engine and the wind were so extreme, it was impossible to endure without protection. That little sacrifice perfectly sums up the Viper's essence. A car designed for purists who wanted unfiltered thrills. Now, I want to ask you a question that might be the hardest of all for a true muscle car lover. If you had to choose between this Dodge Viper and the exclusive Pontiac Firehawk, which one would you pick and why? Leave your answer in the comments and tell us what makes you lean toward one or the other. 1999 Shelby Series 1. Have you ever wondered what it would feel like to sit behind the wheel of a car created by a living legend, designed without limits or compromises, with a single purpose, to make history? Today, we're going to discover together a sports car that very few have ever seen in person and almost no one has had the privilege to drive. I'm talking about the Shelby Series 1, the last great masterpiece of Carroll Shelby, a man who didn't stop after inventing the Cobra and revolutionizing Le Mans, but decided to close his legacy with a car so exclusive and radical that even today, it gives chills to anyone who knows its story. The Shelby Series 1 was born from the ambition to unite classic heritage with modern technology. Under its hood, it hid a 4.0-liter Oldsmobile Aurora 8 engine, built entirely in aluminum and capable of producing 320 horsepower and 290 pound-feet of torque in its standard configuration. This power plant allowed it to accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 4.4 seconds and reach a top speed of 170 miles per hour. Figures more than respectable for a car that prioritized pure driving experience over electronic gimmicks. For those customers with even more extreme desires, Shelby offered an optional supercharger kit that boosted power to 450 horsepower, turning it into a true missile on wheels. Production was so limited, it almost feels unreal. Only 249 units left the small Las Vegas factory, each one with a unique serial number and a certificate personally signed by Carroll Shelby himself. This level of exclusivity means that today its value on the collector market easily exceeds $150,000, especially if preserved in original condition. Those lucky enough to own one know they're not just keeping a car, they're preserving a piece of Shelby's personal history. Aesthetically, the Series 1 is a gem. Its wide, low proportions, the hood vents, and the muscular rear fenders gave it a unique presence. The interior combined leather and brushed aluminum in a minimalist layout that reminded you were sitting in something special. Even the shape of the windshield, gently curved, seemed designed to slice through the air like a knife. One fascinating detail many people don't know is that this was the only car Carroll Shelby ever designed completely from scratch, and that carried his name without sharing a platform with any other model. It was his most personal project, his way of proving that even after decades of experience, he could still create something radically different. 2000 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS Dale Earnhardt Edition. There are cars that aren't just machines, they're rolling tributes, living homages to legends who changed the history of speed, and this car is exactly that. A piece of NASCAR mystique brought to the streets, a muscle car disguised as a sedan that won the hearts of thousands of fans. Just imagine for a moment seeing this car parked with Earnhardt's unmistakable signature on the side and the number 3 in the window, and feeling like at any second you might hear that oval track roar rumbling in your chest. To understand why this Monte Carlo is so special, you have to remember that Dale Earnhardt, nicknamed the Intimidator, was more than a driver. He was a symbol of courage, aggression, and limitless talent. Chevrolet decided to honor him with this limited edition that combined the look of a race car with the comfort of a grand tourer. Under the hood, it carried a 3.8-liter V6 engine delivering 200 horsepower and about 225 pound-feet of torque. More than enough to move it briskly with a throaty sound that evoked the essence of NASCAR, albeit tame for the street. Its top speed hovered around 130 miles per hour, but this car wasn't just about outright speed. It was about the feeling of driving a piece of American history. In terms of production, approximately 3,333 units were built, all numbered and featuring details that set them apart from a conventional Monte Carlo SS. Each example had an identification plaque, Earnhardt's autograph on the bodywork, special badges, and upholsteries with unique embroidery. Today, a well-preserved Dale Earnhardt edition can cost between $25,000 and $35,000, but its emotional value to collectors and NASCAR fans is practically incalculable. 1990 Callaway Corvette SuperNatural. Did you know there are Corvettes so special they feel like they came from an alternate universe? One where power is never enough and the word excess simply doesn't exist? The Callaway SuperNatural is exactly that, a bold experiment that took the already imposing Corvette C4 and transformed it into a steroid-fueled beast, capable of humiliating any European sports car daring enough to challenge it. This car didn't roll out of the Chevrolet factory in its final form. Instead, it passed through the magical hands of Callaway Cars, the legendary workshop that turned extreme engineering into an art form. Under its long hood lived an engine that justified its name from start to finish. The 5.7-liter V8, modified with special cylinder heads, a hand-built induction system, and millimeter-precise tuning, delivered performance figures that are still jaw-dropping today. Depending on the version, the SuperNatural produced between 400 and 435 horsepower, easily surpassing the factory ZR1. Torque hovered near 443 pound-feet, translating into savage 0 to 60 miles per hour sprints in under 4 seconds, 4.8 seconds, while top speed was around 180 miles per hour. For 1990, this was madness few could even imagine. The most fascinating part was that every SuperNatural was built to order. Each customer could choose personalized configurations for engine, brakes, suspension, and interior finishes. That's why no two Callaways are exactly alike. Production was extremely limited. Estimates suggest fewer than 150 units received the full conversion, making every example an unrepeatable piece of automotive history. Today, if you find one, expect to pay well over $100,000, especially if it still retains all the original Callaway documentation. A little-known detail is that these cars came with a numbered plaque on the center console engraved with the owner's name and the serial number. That personal touch made them even more exclusive, like each SuperNatural was a signed artwork. Visually, the Callaway SuperNatural could almost go unnoticed, but only to those who didn't know what they were looking at. While its body retained the essence of the C4 Corvette, the massive hood vents, discreet dual exhaust tips, and unique 17-inch wheels announced you were staring at something far more serious. The interior, trimmed in leather with bespoke instrumentation, completed an atmosphere of brutal sophistication. And now I want to throw out a question that's sure to spark a heated debate among those of us who love cars with real soul. If you had to choose between owning a Callaway SuperNatural or a factory original Corvette ZR1, which would you pick and why? Leave your answer in the comments and tell us what makes you lean toward one or the other. 1998 Dodge Dakota RT. Some vehicles defy every label. They're not exactly sports cars, but they're definitely not just utility vehicles either. They're so unique, you almost have to invent a new category to describe them. The Dakota RT is exactly that rare specimen. A pickup transformed into a muscle car with a cargo bed, a rolling contradiction that over time became a cult icon revered by enthusiasts around the world. Picture the scene, the late 90s, the American market crowded with practical, quiet trucks built for daily work, and suddenly Dodge decided to release a version of the Dakota with a V8 heart and an unapologetic attitude that looked like it belonged on a drag strip. Under its hood was a 5.9-liter Magnum 5.8, a robust, brutal block producing 250 horsepower and a massive 450 Newton-meters of torque. These numbers made the RT the fastest pickup in its class, capable of sprinting from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 6.9 seconds, a figure that embarrassed more than a few sports cars of the era. Top speed wasn't outrageous, about 118 miles per hour, but that didn't matter. Dodge offered the RT exclusively as a regular cab, rear-wheel drive truck, a choice that proved its pure purpose, fun and attitude, not utility. A well-preserved example can cost around $25,000 today, and every year its reputation grows among those who value originality over logic. A fun detail is that many units became legends at underground drag strips, where they humiliated Mustangs and Camaros whose drivers couldn't believe a pickup could move with such ferocity. For many, it was the gateway to a world where being different is exactly what makes it great. And so we come to the end of this ride full of noise, power, and pure 90s nostalgia. If you ever dreamed of having one of these muscle cars in your garage, today you probably felt that spark lighting up your heart again, because no matter how much time passes, the passion for these classics never dies. Now I want to know something only true fans can answer. Which of these 10 muscle cars made your heart beat faster, and why? Leave your answer down below in the comments. And if you still want more, don't leave without checking out our special on the most incredible muscle cars of the 80s. I guarantee they'll surprise you just as much as these did. Click here and come along as we keep discovering automotive history on wheels.